Hey guys, Bud Elliot here, back again on Cover 3. This is my summer school series. I'm talking North Carolina, and for my money, and judging by their numbers, everybody's money, the only place to go for North Carolina coverage is Inside Carolina, just the best team site, regardless of team, in the industry. And I got my man Adam Smith here, covers Carolina. Adam, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, bud. It's good to be with you.
Comes highly recommended from Chip Patterson. I was like, dude,
Oh my goodness,
we had not met before, and Chip, he's like, man, this guy's a stud. It's like, all right,
that's my guy from way back. I mean, gonna show my age if I said how long I've been mixing it, trading some elbows with Chip, and we'll pick up basketball every now and then.
The Chip got game.
Chip is feisty.
Okay.
He's a good energy guy. He has a lot of good team spirit. I don't think Chip's gonna hurt you. He's a good guy to have on the team.
Okay, I like that.
This gets back to Chip. He
definitely
we're got to have on the team.
We're keeping this in for sure. Hell, Jordan may clip this as soon as we get off the air and send it to him on the group chat. That is some kind words about Chip there. North Carolina, some good things to say about last year, and some kind of disappointing things. They went 9-5. Power ratings had them somewhere in the 40s or the 50s, which when you have Drake Maye, kind of don't want to have single score wins against two Sun Belt teams and lose at home to Georgia Tech and to an NC State team that had an offense that was kind of falling apart. What was it like to cover this squad? Like, did you leave the press box kind of wanting more? Like, how are they doing this?
It was a tightrope act for a long time. They started 9-1, and yeah, everything was just dramatic. Like they made everything interesting. I mean, I don't know if I'm dating myself, but it's like a Pepto-Bismol moment just waiting to happen all the time. Like you said, regardless if it was Georgia State or App State or, Pitt or Miami or whoever. I mean, they played a classic game with Duke. It was not a basketball matchup. They played a classic game with Duke where Drake Maye pulled a rabbit out of his hat at the very end with Josh Downs and Antoine Green, holding on by their fingernails to win that game. But yeah, it's interesting that you asked that because, you could look at it several different ways. They won 9 games. They started 9-1. They already had the Coastal Division wrapped up by the second weekend in November. And then they lose their final 4 games. They lose to Georgia Tech in a debacle. They were up 17-0 in Chapel Hill. And they just, Georgia Tech was down to their 3rd or 4th string quarterbacks. And then they lose a rivalry game to NC State around Thanksgiving, lose the Clemson ACC championship game, Oregon in the Holiday Bowl. So it was sort of a clunking ending to a season where you could have won 10 or 11 games, maybe.
I mean, it was very interesting to watch. And the split is between their offense and defense was one of the largest in the country. They're almost like reverse Iowa, like a top 15, top 10 type offense. And just, last year there was hope about the defense, and it went from 112th all the way to 105th. So basically, like, no material improvement in terms of what the stat sheet picked up. But we'll start with the positive. Let's start. I mean, Drake Maye
use reverse Iowa. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm trying to rack my brain, like, which teams are like. I mean, Iowa's clearly the one with amazing. Like, Iowa was like 118th on defense and 2nd on offense. Or excuse me, reverse that. But yeah,
reverse it.
It was they're kind of amazing. Is Drake Maye the best player in North Carolina history if he goes out and puts up another season like that?
Oh my God. What would Charlie Choo Choo Justice say about this? There's a statue of that guy out front of the Kenan Football Center every time you walk in. Choo Choo Justice. I don't know. I mean, modern history, it's interesting with the season that they had last year. Everything, how it is when you're writing these things or you're producing this content, for the first time since, and you always had a year. Well, with the year they had last year, it always went back to 1980 with UNC, which was the prime LT situation in Chapel Hill. They were trying to win their first ACC football championship since LT's days. So I don't know. I don't want any of these people coming after me, but my goodness. I mean, the numbers, obviously the numbers. I mean, we could sit here and do this for the rest of the afternoon on the numbers, but I think it was something like he's one of 6 quarterbacks ever to like throw for 3,500 and run for 700 or something like that. And everyone, like 4 of the other 6 all won the Heisman Trophy. So Yeah, I mean, I can pull it up here. I mean, it's like
No,
Manziel,
that'll work.
Murray, and you know, yeah, I mean, the guy's pretty dang good. Now, I do think it will be interesting to see how this offense, which should be pretty high powered, looks without Josh Downs. But they do have a lot of pieces. I mean, they haven't lost any running backs. Not that they run the ball heavily, like they ran the ball heavily under Phil Longo. And they have what I think pretty good, stable of weapons at receiver. Some of the transfers they've gotten in, Tez Walker from Kent State, Nate McCullum from Georgia Tech, should be pretty nasty. And they have all the 3 tight ends back. So, I mean, I don't think, it'll be interesting to see what, in terms of production, Drake does put up, what they ask him to put up, because he was obviously shouldering a pretty big load last year.
I wanted to ask you about that. So they do lose. Wisconsin has the Dairy Raid experience now with Phil Longo, which is kind of a cool name. And
that is awesome.
Chip Lindsey comes into town, and how do you think this thing will look different? Obviously, like, Longo's pretty unique, so it's going to look different. But how do you think the Lindsey offense will look? I assume a little bit less tempo, right, to start.
Yeah, and by all accounts, I mean, you know how it is. I mean, you've done this forever. You know how every you hear at this time of year in the summer what every coach wants, this team or this offense to become, these stated goals, and then you get punched in the mouth in September, and the goals fly out the window, and like Drake throw the ball 55 times and win this one for us, buddy. But yeah, I think that they want to. This is what they say. They want to put more emphasis on running the ball, which makes sense. And maybe controlling the game a little more, shortening the game a little more. Drake Maye led UNC in rushing last year. He didn't just throw for 4,000 yards. He led them in rushing. So I think that and this might be getting into the weeds too much, but yeah, with Phil Longo and Jack Bicknell, the offensive line coach, leaving, you bring in Chip Lindsey and Randy Clements on the offensive line, and he seems to be a no-nonsense, smash mouth, we're going to run the heck out of the ball type dude. I'm sure you probably crossed paths with him before.
Yep.
Another guy I wouldn't want to tangle with. I mean, he's an ornery sucker, but he's a nice guy. So I think they want to put more emphasis on the run game if they can. They have a bunch of backs. They're going to have to figure out how to use 2 and maybe a third. They have about 5 or 6 guys that can play and have played. So, and they have a lot of experience on the offensive line, obviously. Left tackle could be a little bit of an issue. They're moving the guy, William Barnes, who played right guard the last 2 years, out to left tackle. So,
we'll see. Kid, I believe, right?
What's that?
A Popka kid, I think, right by me here in Florida.
You're absolutely right. Great friends with Ed Montellis, who came out of Florida down there. Yeah. They're really tight on the UNC offensive line. They've started forever. But Drake is so mobile that, he could help you out if you're getting beat at left tackle, obviously. So, sure. But I think they want to try to be more physical, maybe not as pretty as Mac might say. And we'll see how that goes. I mean, I do think they have a lot of pieces. I mean, I think the offense could be really, really, really good.
Everything we heard, everything I read was that Devontae Walker, the Kent State transfer, just hit the ground running and is a stud. I'm curious, assuming that's correct, what are they going to get out of Nate McCullum? Because I thought he was a kind of an intriguing player at Georgia Tech with some explosiveness to his game.
Super intriguing. And if I could tell you about Tez Walker for just a second.
Please,
this guy, he might really he could explode. I think, I hate to, be hindsight. I think he would if Phil Longo was still calling a plays. Because he's a deep Tez Walker. He interesting journey. Got hurt in high school as a Charlotte, North Carolina kid. Got hurt in high school, ended up going to FCS level at NC Central. Didn't play because of COVID. The FCS, didn't play that one year during the pandemic. Transferred to Kent State. Had a nice couple of years at Kent State. Really nice game against Georgia at the end of last season. And he looks like he can beat you deep. It's like, you get to go out to practices, which is always fun. We're taking notes like crazy out there on the old legal pad. And you look up and you're like, who is that? Oh, it's Tez Walker beating someone deep. He's always beating somebody deep. It seemed like once or twice a practice. And he did it in the spring game. I mean, he can move. But But yeah, Nate McCollum. I mean, it's like it feels like overly simple to say, okay, Nate McCollum and Josh Downs are the exact same size, super twitchy. Just plug Nate McCollum in, he'll get 100 catches. Like, but I think he's going to be good too. They got to a point the last 2 years with Sam Howell in 2022 and Drake last season. I mean, in 2021 and Drake last season, where if they needed a first down, it was going to Josh Downs, and he could deliver. I mean, for his size, it was unreal some of the things he was able to do with the attention some of those defenses gave him. So I don't think Nate McCollum's going to be bracketed, but I think he could be a really, really important piece. I mean, like you kind of have the Mr. Underneath and the Mr. Outside with the two transfers that they got in there.
You mentioned the narrative about wanting to be more physical, and all these coordinators come in. We're being more physical on defense.
Right.
We're being more aggressive and blitz more, or hey, we're going to be more disciplined, or whatever it is. But Mac's teams at Texas in the latter years certainly did not have a reputation for being physical. They kind of reputation for being a little soft and getting pushed around. And last year the offensive line numbers for this group were kind of amazing that Drake Maye played as well as he did with the pressure rate that was allowed and some of the short yardage concerns that we had. Like, are you, based on what you've seen so far, like, are they looking more physical? Because it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to be it. And in my mind, I'm skeptical that North Carolina's going to be more physical. I've only seen one physical team there under Mac, and it was that year they had the two really good backs. I thought they ran the ball. Was it 2020 or 2019? I'm trying to think back here.
It was 2020. Javonte Williams and Michael Carter.
Like, I thought that team was relatively physical. Since that, they don't look like they're super physical to me. Like, have you seen a more physical football team?
I mean, no.
Okay.
Like, it's one.
That's
of those,
why we do summer school. We look for the honesty. You know what I mean? Like it's easy to say. It's hard to do.
Well, they're doing different stuff with Randy Clements, like in terms of spring practices. He's got all sorts of contraptions. I don't know. Again, I feel so old. I'm about to make a Mr. Miyagi reference. Like, nice. What am I doing? Kids are probably in another room laughing. Who the heck is Mr. Miyagi? But he's got all these different contraptions. I mean, he's got their ankles chained together. They look like a prison work gang, to be quite honest with you. These clothesline looking things that they got to get under all the time.
Oh, the chutes.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm a soft guy who used to play a little basketball back in the day. It's cool, but they're definitely working different. I mean, I think it's one of those things time will tell, obviously. I mean, one thing, the last couple of years, they have not played many people on the offensive line. I mean, they talk about, everybody says, we want to play a two deep in and out of there, a hockey line change, have two deep at every position. They haven't been too deep on the offensive line. I don't know if that leads to, at times, getting worn down when you're playing 80 snaps a game. But I don't know. That might not be, accurate in terms of it. They got worn down, but, they could use some more depth. They want another offseason talking point. We need to get more depth. They have some highly recruited younger offensive linemen, Zach Rice, Travion Green, who need to get in there and play some, because they will be when all these older guys, these redshirt seniors and these 6-year guys. I mean, you got a 6-year guy in Corey Gaynor starting at center, who's a good player, great leader. But they need to develop some of these younger guys. So, I think that would go a long way into sort of ensuring UNC success, is to get tougher up there. Yeah, I mean, you got to hand it to Mac. At least he does acknowledge it. He was saying it yesterday, I think it was, that, everybody says we're soft. Everybody says we're not tough. So, it'd be interesting to see what type of team shows up in the opener against South Carolina in terms of toughness. The third game is against Minnesota. And then the fourth game is against Pitt. And Pitt usually does beat you up on those lines. Yeah. They beat Carolina up pretty badly last season, and Drake Maye still won the game for them because he was just too good. I think that's a concern. It's certainly a talking point around Chapel Hill for the last couple of years.
Let's go and switch on over to the defense here. Last year, there was a lot of excitement about the coordinator change, and maybe narrative is that some improvements were made. My numbers aren't capturing Bill Connolly stuff. Saw them go from 112th to 105th. So like that's really like nothing basically. I'm curious. They did make a change, or maybe he left on his own volition. But no more Dre Bly as the secondary coach. I know he kind of divisive figure there as far as coaching versus recruiting.
Correct.
Yeah, to say the least. If you talk to some guys that were on that staff and had since left, what are they getting out of the new defensive backs coach? That's kind of a weird question to start the defense with. But to me, like the communication and development there was at times lacking, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think that the development was a huge issue there for the amount of talent that they had at those positions. Dudes who are studs, and you weren't, it wasn't translating to the field. But yeah, when you're sort of doing the intro on the defense, I was thinking to myself, yeah, none of the numbers for the UNC defense last year are great. They kind of got skewed by some, shootout type games early on, and they just never recovered. But yeah, so Jason Jones has replaced Dre Bly as the cornerbacks coach, and that was the thing when UNC season ended, losing to Oregon at the end. They probably should have beaten them of the Holiday Bowl. The sense that you got was, okay, there are going to be some changes on this defense. How many changes are going to be? And the two two areas people were most pissed about were defensive front, because UNC's sack numbers just were god awful. They were non-existent, honestly. I know you can
red zone too was horrendous.
Yeah, you can talk about
short yardage goal line was
oof. Not like just the simple. If you go simply pull up the sack numbers, but yet it's it gets worse the more you look at it, honestly. But yeah, so would there be a change made up front? The front seven defensive line type thing, would there be a change made in the secondary, which was a mess? You sort of had Tony Grimes, who was a super highly recruited guy. It sounds like he just decided not to play the last couple of games because he was going to be getting in the portal. He since ended up at Texas A&M. Storm Duck. They're two starting corners, Tony Grimes and Storm Duck, both talented dudes. Didn't play the last couple of games. It was Storm Duck apparently had a concussion, but people believe that he didn't want to risk anything either because he was getting in the portal. So, the thing that's going on now is they have a remade secondary. I mean, this is going to be all new thing at corner, all new thing at safety. A couple transfers who have come in. One transfer in particular, Elijah Huzzy of East Tennessee State, has really turned some heads. I was thinking they got another guy, Armani Chapman from Virginia Tech. Yeah, solid player, solid ACC player. When they got him out of the portal, they had a pretty good, I would say they had a pretty good portal haul. They had 9-10 guys, and these guys all look like they're going to play. But when Chapman got in there, I was like, okay, well, there's one of your starting corners, was what my just first thought. But it seems like he does has a chance there too. But Huzzy has really turned some heads. He was one of the top interception guys in the FCS. I understand it's the FCS, but he made a lot of plays during the spring, and they really like him. But with the Jason Jones dynamic, you have Charlton Warren back there too, sort of overseeing the defensive backfield. He's Gene Chizik's right-hand man. It's Charlton and Gene's defense. They're calling the shots. And I think that with the removal of Dre Bly, with his exit, which, I mean, it's a tough thing. He was one of Mac's greatest players the first time around. There's a lot of polarizing feelings, sort of around Dre Bly. He was a great recruiter, always repping the program. He sort of gave it some juice, but the coaching acumen, it was his first coaching job. And that was sort of the knock with Dre, was that, he wasn't developing guys, as you said. So we'll see what happens there. But, it seems to be a pretty good working relationship because Charlton Warren and Jason Jones, the new cornerbacks coach, have a history together. And, it seems like maybe that will just be a little more settled. Maybe there's a lot of volatility back there.
I mean, it is so hard to get Drake Maye, right? Like, you probably get one in your coaching career. Maybe it should not be that hard at North Carolina to produce like a top 60 level defense, or maybe a top 50, right? Like
defense, right?
I mean, 105th after 112th is is ridiculous. It's kind of shameful to waste Drake May's career like this. Like I really, I'm not even a North Carolina fan. It kind of makes me ticked off that they're just wasting this thing with an incompetent, defensive coaching job the last couple of years.
Get
the
mad
front,
about it if you need to. Get
yeah,
mad.
man. Like this is
a
like,
safe
come
place,
on, man. Like I want to see Drake
you
May in the
look great
playoffs
over there, by the way. The whole setup looks wonderful.
I appreciate that.
You're
I strongly debated the hat, no hat. I have a crazy sunburn. I think I've overestimated how much hair I have and underestimated how much forehead I have. And I was out there at the Lead 11 in Cali, and
your hair looks excellent. I'm struggling in the hair department.
I had the quarter zip on.
I have.
Man, the quarter zip on, and like you don't feel like you're getting sunburned because it's nice weather, nice breezy. And I got home. My wife's like, "Did you miss a little spot there?" And I've got like maybe a 3/4 inch band that's just peeling like crazy.
Just tell her it'll even out. It's gonna even out, right? It'll work its way in there. Nice base.
Oh man, so I had to look nice for the Inside Carolina folks. So you guys have an awesome operation over there. Let me ask you about this front seven, because like last year I was of the opinion let's write off 2021. Maybe there's some chance this unit grows up. There is a lot of talent there. They didn't really grow up. Almost all the numbers that you can point to, like short yardage, goal line, tackling, like anything you could point to that is sort of like a physicality thing, they were pretty bottom of the barrel in, which is kind of why I asked you the physicality aspect on the other side of the ball as well. But everybody who played 200 snaps last year in the front seven returns. And Tamari Fox, who I thought last year was kind of an important loss, maybe you disagree with that. I mean, like, not that he's amazing, but like I thought had some talent level to him. He's back, right? And he played in 21 and played all right. So is this the year this group takes a step forward or some kind of step forward? Because it's got to be a little bit better, I hope.
Shameless plug, if you don't mind, Bud. I sat down with Tamari Fox for 90 minutes the other day.
There you go.
And whoo, I wasn't sure where we're going to go with this because he missed last year, was suspended by the NCAA for PEDs. And it's if you know how it is, the material is very good. If I can just write it properly, it'll turn out pretty decent. It was a fantastic conversation. And you know how it is when you go into an interview, you're not sure where the thing's going to go. You don't want to make the dude mad, but right. you want to get some bang for your buck here. You want to make it worthwhile. Tamari was great. We ended up, I'm rambling on. We ended up doing a photo shoot with him with his motorcycle. He drove the thing onto the Kenan Stadium field.
Now, is he like a Harley guy or is he like a racing bike type guy?
It's it's like an old school, like cruising type.
Oh, okay.
It is not a crotch rocket, not one of those. No, it was, you turn some probably easy listening on or something. And, but I can't wait to hear what Mac has to say about this when he sees the photos, because we did drive the motorcycle onto the football field. Hopefully we don't get in trouble for this. The photos turned out great, but
I mean, Wake Forest does it all the time.
Hey, you're right. You're right. Great. Excellent teamwork there. You're right. Right. I mean, it's field turf. It can't hurt, right? That's a great point. But yeah, I mean, you're right. They haven't lost anybody. I mean, they did lose Ravo Hasek to the NFL draft, 7th round pick, but they have a lot of dudes back, and they have Tamari back, and they have 2 really good linebackers in Cedric Gray and Power Eccles when you're talking front 7. Now they put so many, I think I've got the stat right. Cedric Gray played more snaps than any ACC defender since 2018 last year. I mean, they put a ton of snaps on it, those 2 guys at linebacker, and they got a ton of production. Cedric Gray led the ACC in tackles. So it's year 2 of Gene Chizik. You would think they would have a better deployment. I don't know if that's the even right way to say it, but a better setup to sort of get some more production out of these guys, because they were not productive. It was not a productive in terms of pressuring the passer, and you said it's short yardage, creating turnovers, like just some of the things you need to do as a defense. But they should be, they should have plenty of guys to turn to on the defensive line to sort of roll in and out of there. And, you got 2 linebackers who are good players, they're good players, at least, if they can hold up. So, I mean, they need it. Like you're alluding to with Drake. I mean, they need, this is one of those, I don't want to say like prove it or lose it or put up or shut up or one of those situations. But we've asked Gene some tougher questions lately in the spring, and he sort of, I think he agrees that they need to take a big step forward defensively.
I mean, if he did not agree that 105th in defense is
Right.
unacceptable, that's kind of what are we doing here in a moment. I want to ask you about Keyshawn Silver. So, defensive lineman that transferred out to Kentucky, and I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
So, Kentucky seems to be pretty excited about him. Like, did you see flashes in practice, and yet he wasn't starting? So, like, should we read in that in a positive way about what Carolina has coming back? You see what I'm saying? I'm looking for reasons to be positive here about this defensive front. And like Stoops does a good job defensively at Kentucky, and they pump out D linemen pretty well. If he wasn't getting on the field a lot, maybe that it does mean some of these young guys are going to take a step, like who aren't real young anymore.
Guy, 5-star Keyshawn Silver, 5-star guy, North Carolina guy, super highly rated. Now, what we always heard was there was a weight issue with Keyshawn. He had an injury early on and gained some weight, and his weight never got back. And before he transferred, we reported that they were asking him to move to offensive line.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, think about that. So yeah, that's what our intel. That's we reported it.
He has that kind of build to him,
I mean, and he didn't want to do that, and I can't say that I blame him, but yeah, with him was he just never could get on the field, and he never could get on the field, and there's some older guys that are big and super strong down there, Miles Murphy, Kevin Hester Jr., and then you have Travis Shaw, who sort of was in the same mold of Keyshawn, but he got on the field as a true freshman. Travis Shaw, 5-star guy out of Greensboro, North Carolina. And he seems to like he's making the steps to sort of come on, and he's got all the tools. So with Keyshawn, that was one of those guys where, I got the depth chart here, and you're always like, why is he third? Because they get 3 deep in some positions, but
first off the bus, third on the depth chart.
Yeah. But he's just one of those guys, they're at linebacker. They had Rod Dilworth, who was a super highly recruited guy, North Carolina guy, one of these huge recruiting wins. And he never sort of panned out at linebackers. Always, is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? He was a tweener, light for linebacker, and he could fly. But he's another one of those that panned out. You put Tony Grimes in that category because Tony Grimes was going to be this, generational cornerback out of the Tidewater. Carolina, UNC owns the Tidewater region again, that type of thing.
Right.
So yeah.
See, like I mean, as a recruiting guy, I hate to see the bus. I'm like, is it us, or are they just not developing players? I mean, it's like I don't know. I guess we'll see how the rest of these guys, turn out. It'd be hard for this defense to be worse, though.
Yes.
I mean, and I don't mean that in a sarcastic way, but if you're doing projections, this is one of the teams that bugs me quite a bit. Like this team, Texas A&M, to some extent Miami, but it was year one last year. You look at the talent score you give them, and then you look at some of the other factors. Just regression to positive regression to the mean defensively should yield good results for them. And if they can get through, that early schedule where they'll probably be favored in all 4 games, but it's also not guaranteed wins. And the App should be a guaranteed win. If they mess around with App again, they got problems. But after that, the rest of the schedule is more manageable. I don't think Virginia is any good at all. Georgia Tech is rebuilding. Campbell, you get Duke at home. At Clemson's a toughie, obviously, and NC State on the road. We'll see. But it's a team that could win 8-9 ball games, I think, unless I'm way off here, and maybe have a shot to play for it.
Without a doubt. And if you get through those first 3 or 4, then you could be set up to sort of really roll into the last 3 because, I think Duke will be good, relatively speaking. And I think the last 3, what is it? Is Duke, NC State, Clemson. Is that right? Did they finish?
Yep, Duke, NC State, Clemson. Yep.
Yeah, and those last 3, it could be a November to remember. Haven't used that one before. We could be, it could get pretty interesting, but it's going to be, they're going to have to get out of the gates good here. I think that first ACC game against Pitt, I think that's, when September ends, I have a really good notion about what Carolina's going to have. And yeah, I mean, I'll be interested to see what Florida State is. Where are you on the Florida State sort of? Because I think UNC fans this is a interesting. Where are you on the Florida State hype train? Are you all aboard that? I'm not saying it's not warranted.
I'm buying for the ACC. I'm selling for like national championship good. They don't quite hit the blue chip ratio. I think they've done a nice job in the transfer portal, and they have done. When you look at this recently, the teams that are winning the national title have 7 first-round draft picks on average in their 2 deep. I don't think Florida State has half that, but I think they have a ton of guys who are like 5th, 6th, 7th, or priority free agent, and including some guys who might not even start. Like they've done a really good job rebuilding the depth at almost all of the positions. So if Jordan Travis stays healthy, I would be surprised if they lose more than 1 or 2 ACC games. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
But they don't play North Carolina, obviously. So like there's no tiebreaker to be figured out there. I mean, I think it's 4 teams for this league, right? It's Clemson, Florida State, Carolina, and because of the schedule, Louisville. Like there is some situation in which Louisville, which doesn't play basically any of these guys, sneaks in, and the rest of the ACC is just ticked off like crazy. But they'll get theirs next year when the schedule flips, and they don't get to play like the whole state of Virginia and everybody else, that type of stuff. But
UNC does, not to cut you off. Sorry to drop a
question
on you, by the way.
No, I think it makes the show fun, man.
But I was thinking about what you're talking about with the depth that FSU has built, and one of those, UNC has an FSU trainer, Amari Gaynor, guy's been around a long time. Amari Ferrari, as we all know him. Obviously, we have asked him about that. They don't call me Ferrari they wouldn't call me Ferrari if I was slow, I think was the quote I used for the first time we got. He's a great dude, seems like.
Yeah, super fun guy.
Yeah. So he could be a contributor. He's one of those guys that are looking to sort of, turn loose and try to help some of these pressure numbers and stuff.
I think that's the key with him, honestly. Like I would blitz him or let him chase. The diagnosis stuff didn't seem to click quite a lot, but I think if you were using him to just pressure, I think that makes some sense.
Yeah, his build is interesting. Like, he's looks amazing, obviously. Yeah. But then, he's kind of skinny through the legs and stuff. He's not. I don't know if he looks like from the waist up, he looks like a football player, but the waist down looks like a track guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or like a basketball guy. Yeah, exactly. Totally.
Yeah, I didn't mean to be breaking down Armani Gaynor's body, but
no, it's. I mean, if he's a piece that can help.
Yeah,
like that'll be. I'm gonna get you out of here on this one. I mean, we've gone a little bit long, but I've enjoyed it. So this has been fun. I hope the fans at home have enjoyed it. I'm glad we didn't try to fit this in that one day. It would have been too compressed,
That was I appreciate you working with me on that too.
No, I appreciate all 75 of our team sites making time for us. It really makes for an awesome summer series. 2-part question: like, how long do you think Mac is going to coach? And is it sort of understood inside Carolina circles that there's a successor already named? Like I had heard craziness that Gene Chizik was going to be like taking over, which I assume is not true given that they have 105th rated defense. But is that I assume that's nonsense and just a rumor that you see on Twitter and whatnot. But is there kind of an understanding amongst Carolina circles what's likely to happen here?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's nonsense in that it makes some sense in terms of Gene as, I don't know if this works or not, but I have a lot of material that doesn't work, but I've called it the max session plan, succession max.
Okay, there we go.
I mean, it obviously didn't work before. What was it? With Will Muschamp, I guess, was the first max session plan years ago now.
Yeah.
Everything that we have tried to dig up and we've been working on, there doesn't appear to be a max session plan in place. Now, there very well may be, but no one has been willing to tell us that there is, including the guy who runs the athletic department, Bubba Cunningham. I actually asked him the other day. I had a chance to have lunch with him, and that's what he said. He said it didn't work the first time. I have talked to Mac about it, and so there's no Mac. I hit Bubba with that max session. But
do you want to go? You want to go real deep on this? So a guy that Mac Brown coached for, Bobby Bowden, I don't think he was in favor of a Mac session style plan, but Jimbo was the coach in waiting there for 3 years before
Right.
Bowden left. So at least he knows somebody, who had been around it.
Right. Exactly. Oh, I remember those days. Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not answering your question about how much longer Mac has. This one is a tough call for me because maybe I believe him too much because I ask him all the time. If there's a chance to ask him, I trade like, okay, Mac, come on, you know. He made a joke the other day that he made a joke yesterday that, if he was thinking about retiring, he wouldn't have been on Father's Day. He wouldn't have been meeting with class of 2026 guys on unofficial visits. Like, why would I be doing that if I was going to get out of here? I'm like, well, you make a good point, Mac.
That is a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's when you sort of, when you set it up that way, Father's Day, 2026 unofficial. The man is 71 years old. He turns 72 in August. They always, he always gets an extension. The contract always moves to where it's always a 5-year deal. I don't know how much longer he has left. He seems to want to keep doing it. The sense that I always get from him, and again, maybe I'm easily led, is that he would be bored not doing it. I think he would love to be like the czar of college football if you could have a position like that. He loves, when they have a bye week, and I mean, it's hilarious to hear him come back in on Monday after the bye week because he'll sit there and tell you, like, he will watch games from noon to midnight. He will tell you, he'll watch every game. He'll talk about some decision on 3rd and 8, like everything, noon to midnight.
If we get Mac and Saban to both retire and be like co-czars of college football, like Saban has been so grumpy lately, right? And Mac is just such a nice, kind of bubbly personality typically. Like maybe they could balance each other out. Like that'd be great.
Mac has lost 35 pounds, Bud.
Wow.
Yeah. He wants to lose 15 more, he says. And he's really stuck to this. He was always kind of being very self-deprecating about his weight the last couple of years. He's always called himself a nervous eater. Like I love to see. I mean, he's just a regular dude. I love to snack. He's, if I see some M&Ms, hard to turn them down. Big diet peach tea Snapple guy. Always sipping from that diet peach tea Snapple. But he's lost 35 pounds. He claims that he's in the best shape he's been in 20 years. He seems to be feeling good. Now, if you're a UNC fan, your fear is that, Mac leaves, or maybe you don't want Mac around. That your thought is that Mac could leave with Drake Maye. It's sort of a natural thing. You get Drake out of there. You had Sam Howell. You have Drake Maye. You're not going to do much better than these dudes at UNC. And that he would sort of ride off into the sunset, but he claims that's not what he wants to do. That he wants to keep going as long as he can. His wife Sally is super involved in everything over there. If you are over at the football center in Chapel Hill, you see Sally Brown. I mean, they go to lunch every day. Like she is, she's the first lady of UNC football. She is there for all the recruiting visits. I mean, they are both feet into the thing. So I don't. We haven't been able to determine if there's a max succession plan. All the key players say there is not. But I mean, it'd be crazy not to have somebody in mind, wouldn't you? If you're the athletic director, Bubba Cunningham.
Well, I guess that there's having a list of guys. We get asked. I know we have a lot of coaches that watch this show, and we run into a lot of them when I'm out doing recruiting camps, all these mega camps and stuff. And Carolina's job gets brought up. They're like, you think Carolina can open? Like it's Carolina, I think if you're not in the coaching game or if you're not talking to these coaches elsewhere, I don't think people realize like how highly thought of Carolina is as a job. So a lot of stuff to sell there. If I don't think they have any shortage of suitors if and when Mac ever does decide to hang it up.
Well, that's the thing too. I think it could be anyone too.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You know what I mean. Like it's just just trying to think about a coaching search. Like I don't even know where you would start really. A little different than basketball where, it's coming from the Dean Smith tree.
Exactly right. Adam, I really appreciate it. It's a fun time today, and we'll give a shout out to all our Inside Carolina listeners. Everybody, if you're on YouTube, hit the, I got to actually, See,
You
I
can do
can't
it.
point over there because like you're over there now. Can you just point to the bottom there and point to that QR code? Yep, there you
Where
go.
am I?
We, roughly there is probably where Jordan will drop it in. Yeah, QR code. Boom. Check out Inside Carolina. You guys do a fantastic job. I mean,
Have Chip Patterson do it, Bud. I mean, come on.
we need to.
I mean, get him going. The guy is aging great, by the way. I mean, isn't he just
Dude, how does like the hair is just perfect.
he's just, I mean, he's like a news anchor, just aging right before our eyes and like just so respected. Oh my
I mean, he
I'm so
corrals
glad you brought him
me
up.
and Fernelli and Cannell all the time. He's like, all right, we do need some show topics for the we can't just we can't wing the whole hour. You know, like let's go. No, he's a blast. Will you be at AC Media Day?
I will.
All right.
Yeah. UNC's the
Well,
last day, but I think I'm gonna be there the first day too. Are you in for the whole 3 days? It's a 3
I
day.
am because I get to run by and see a lot of our team site contributors from the
Yeah.
various sites. So it'll be a good time.
I will flag
Awesome.
you down.